remember being so nervous and seeing Tom Cruise drive up in a Porsche, I think it was, and he got out of the car and walked through, and I was like, oh.
When Nicole Kidman divorced Tom Cruise in 2001, many expected one of Hollywood's most famous marriages to produce years of revelations and public accusations. Instead, something far more unusual happened. As speculation swirled and interest in the relationship never faded, Nicole remained guarded about the man she had spent more than a decade with. Through countless opportunities to speak openly, she revealed only fragments of her story. Yet those rare comments paint a fascinating picture of what she experienced and how she chose to move forward. Why did Nicole Kidman stay silent for so long? And what has she finally revealed about Tom Cruise after all these years? Join us as we unveil everything. The 6 words that told the world everything. The David Letterman appearance happened on August 2, 2001. Nicole's divorce from Tom Cruise had been finalized that same month, after 10 years of marriage and a separation announcement in February that had sent the tabloid world into a sustained frenzy of speculation about causes, timelines, and who was responsible for what. David Letterman was direct the way he always was. He opened the interview by asking how the divorce was going. Nicole Kidman paused for a moment, then said she could finally wear heels. The audience got the reference immediately. The laughter that followed was genuine and knowing. The line has been quoted in celebrity coverage every year since it was first delivered. The specific genius of the remark was that it was technically inoffensive in every possible way. She had not said anything about Tom Cruise's character, his behavior, his faith, or the details of their marriage. She had made a joke about shoes. But the joke was pointed enough to communicate something very specific, without saying it directly. It said there had been something limiting about the dynamic between them. Something she had been accommodating for years, and she was now free from. All of that was delivered in 6 words about footwear, leaving her absolutely nothing to apologize for and nobody to argue with. It was the single sharpest public comment she has ever made about the marriage. Everything before it and everything after it has been considerably more careful, considerably more measured, and considerably more revealing in what it chooses not to say than in what it actually says out loud. Which raises the question that most people who follow her career have thought about at some point. Why has a woman with her intelligence, her articulateness, and her platform chosen to say almost nothing about one of the most significant and most publicly scrutinized relationships of her life? The answer, when you look at all of it together, is more complicated than simple discretion. And it begins not with anything she has said, but with 2 people whose presence in her life shaped every word she has ever said publicly about Tom Cruise. The 2 children she could not risk losing. Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman adopted 2 children during their marriage. Isabella Jane Cruise was born in 1992. Connor Anthony Cruise was born in 1995. Both children are now adults and have been reported across many years of consistent coverage to be largely estranged from their mother. Bella and Connor sided with their father after the divorce in a way that has been both painful and visible. Neither has given interviews about their relationship with Nicole. She has spoken about them in interviews with obvious emotion, describing them as her children and describing loving them unconditionally. But the photographs that document her public life rarely show them present in it. The gap between how warmly she speaks about them and how rarely they appear beside her is one of the most quietly heartbreaking ongoing stories in celebrity culture. The Church of Scientology's documented position on members who separate from non-member spouses, and specifically the concept of declaring someone a suppressive person, has been extensively covered by former members over many years. Whether Nicole was formally classified in this way is something neither she nor the organization has ever publicly confirmed. What has been publicly documented, consistently and across decades, is the outcome. Adult children who are present in their father's world and largely absent from their mother's. Every public comment she might make about the marriage, about Tom Cruise's behavior, or about the reasons the relationship ended, carries a specific and serious risk. If what she says is read by Bella and Connor's community as an attack on their faith or on their father, it closes the door a little further between her and the two people she has never stopped describing as her children. That calculation does not require her to be afraid of Tom Cruise or to be silenced by external pressure. It requires her only to love her children more than she wants the satisfaction of being publicly understood. She has chosen the children over the satisfaction of being heard. She has been making that choice consistently for 25 years. Most people who casually wonder why she does not speak more openly about the marriage have never had to make anything remotely like it. But when she eventually revealed what had happened, the world was taken aback. What she has actually said and how she has said it. The moments when Nicole Kidman has come closest to speaking plainly about her marriage to Tom Cruise are worth examining carefully, because the way she says things is as revealing as what she says. In July 2024, while giving interviews during an active press period, she reflected on the production of Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick's final film, which she and Tom Cruise made together between 1996 and 1999. She described the experience in warm, specific terms. She talked about going go-kart racing after the most emotionally difficult scenes, renting out tracks at 3 in the morning. She talked about spaghetti dinners with Kubrick and their children. She talked about learning about their lives while living them on the set of the greatest filmmaker she had ever worked with. And then she said something that has stayed in the coverage of her interviews ever since. She said Stanley was mining something. She said there were ideas that Tom Cruise was interested in exploring through the material. She recalled Stanley telling them that triangles were difficult, that you had to tread carefully in a dynamic where one person could feel surrounded. The phrase mining something is doing a lot of work in a very small space. It suggests that the film was drawing on something real in the marriage, that Stanley had identified emotional material present between them and was using the camera to find it. It stops well short of saying what that something was. It leaves everything to implication rather than to the statement. It is a sentence that tells you there is a larger story without telling you what that story contains. The willingness to gesture toward the truth without landing on it, the ability to be honest about the emotional shape of an experience without specifying any of the events that produced it, is characteristic of every public comment she has made about this marriage across 25 years. She is not lying. She is not pretending that nothing happened. She is communicating in a language so precisely measured that the listener can hear the weight of what is not being said without being given anything they can quote as evidence of it. Let's now take a look at how the divorce occurred and reveal hints most fans didn't notice. How the divorce actually happened. The official public account of the Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman divorce, announced in February 2001, was a brief statement citing irreconcilable differences. What happened around that announcement, and in the months leading up to it, has been the subject of sustained speculation for a quarter of a century, driven by the unusual sequence of events that followed. Tom Cruise had been filming Mission: Impossible 2 and then Vanilla Sky. When the separation was announced in February 2001, his Vanilla Sky co-star Penelope Cruz was immediately the subject of intense media interest regarding her possible role in the timeline. Tom and Cruise publicly confirmed their relationship in 2001. Nicole had spent much of the previous year in Australia, filming Moulin Rouge, while Tom was working in the United States. The geography of where they both were in the year before the announcement is a fact that gets discussed often in coverage of the divorce, without anyone being able to draw a definitive conclusion from it. What Nicole has said about the experience in subsequent years is consistent and specific. She told Harper's Bazaar that she had been hurt by what she went through. She said she had become more cautious because of it, but that she much preferred warmth and openness to a prickly, shut-down way of moving through the world. She chose to remain open despite being given significant reasons not to. She also miscarried early in the marriage. She has spoken about this loss with privacy and sadness in contexts where it was relevant, rather than as something she offered to the press. The grief of losing a pregnancy is something the marriage absorbed. The divorce compounded it. She has never used either experience as a weapon in the public conversation about what happened between them. Sources close to Tom, as cited by outlets covering his response to the post-divorce period, have suggested he felt unfairly portrayed as the villain of the story, that the heels joke and other comments in the immediate aftermath of the separation stung him more than he showed publicly, and that he believed Nicole was positioned as the sympathetic figure while he received the blame. Whether these accounts accurately represent his private thinking or serve a particular narrative purpose is genuinely impossible to assess from the outside. What the record shows is that neither of them ever had the full, frank public conversation about what ended the marriage. Everything the world knows about it is a fragment of a larger story that has been jointly, silently, and with enormous mutual discipline kept out of reach. While Nicole remained largely silent about the divorce, let's reveal the details of the film that showed everyone what was happening in the marriage. Eyes Wide Shut. Of everything in the public record about Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, the most revealing document is a film, and that film existed before the divorce. Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut, released in July 1999, was the last film the director ever made. It stars Tom and Nicole as a married couple whose relationship begins to destabilize when the wife admits to having experienced a powerful fantasy about another man. And the husband, destabilized by the honesty of what she has told him, spends a long, strange night descending into the edges of a world that exists alongside the respectable life they have built together. The film is explicitly about the gap between the self a person presents to their spouse and the self that lies beneath that presentation. It is about what happens to trust inside a marriage when suppressed desires become visible. It was made over 15 months, the longest continuous shoot in cinema history at the time of completion. Tom and Nicole were still married throughout. Stanley died in March 1999, 6 days after showing the final cut of the film to Warner Brothers. He never sat in a cinema and watched what he had made. Tom and Nicole divorced 2 years after the film was released. When Nicole spoke about making it in 2024, she described the experience with warmth and with the specific, careful language that she has always used when the subject comes close to something she is protecting. What Stanley made with access to their marriage, with both of them performing it on camera across 15 months in some of the most psychologically exposed circumstances that film production has ever created, is a film in which the surface of a relationship and the reality beneath it are two entirely different things. Whether that reading of the film is autobiographical or coincidental is something that only the two people who lived through it know. Nicole has described it as an extraordinary experience with the greatest filmmaker she has ever worked with, and she has chosen to say nothing further. That refusal to go further is itself a statement, and most people who have watched the film and then watched the marriage end have understood what kind of statement it is. But what has Tom Cruise said or revealed in all this? A different kind of silence. Tom Cruise has said almost nothing publicly about Nicole Kidman for over 25 years. His silence has been different in texture from hers, though, in ways that are worth paying attention to. Her silence has been publicly acknowledged, discussed, and attributed meaning. She has been asked about it in interviews, she has addressed it indirectly, and the reasons for it have been the subject of sustained and serious coverage. His silence has simply existed without being subjected to the same level of examination, partly because he remarried quickly, partly because his public persona was rebuilt around mission, impossible and action cinema rather than around biographical narrative, and partly because the cultural framework for assessing what divorced people owe each other in terms of disclosure tends to examine women more closely than men. The six-word heels joke went viral again in late 2025 when news broke of Nicole's separation from Keith Urban, because the internet's instinct when a woman's marriage ends is to reach for the sharpest thing she ever said about her previous one. The joke circulated in 2025 as though it were fresh, finding audiences who had not been old enough to hear it on Letterman in 2001 and who encountered it as a new piece of information rather than a 24-year-old piece of cultural history. Reports from sources close to Tom, which appeared in multiple outlets in the wake of Nicole's 2025 separation from Urban, suggested he had told friends he felt a sense of being proven right, a sense that the end of her second long marriage confirmed something. The sourcing of claims of this nature is always difficult to verify, and the dynamics they describe are always difficult to assess from a distance. Whether Tom said anything resembling this, or whether it is constructed from assumptions and tabloid convenience, is genuinely unclear. What is clear from the documented record is that neither of them, across 2.5 decades, has given the public anything approaching a complete account of what happened inside the marriage that the whole world spent 10 years watching from the outside. Everyone went quiet about the divorce until history repeated itself. What exactly happened that brought this divorce back to the headlines? The Urban divorce. In September 2025, Nicole Kidman filed for divorce from Keith Urban after 19 years of marriage. The separation had been in progress since approximately June of that year. Reports described Urban as having initiated it. Nicole had been trying to preserve the marriage. She told People's sources she did not want this, that she was devastated. The language was the same language she had used 25 years earlier about the first divorce, which tells you something about the consistency of who she is when she is hurt, that she does not perform devastation, and she does not pretend it is something other than what it is. The filing immediately resurged public interest in everything connected to Tom Cruise. The heels joke circulated again. The timeline of the first divorce was reassembled in dozens of online articles. The children who are estranged from her were mentioned again. Everything she had said, and not said over 25 years, was picked over again in the light of a new ending to a different marriage, as though the second divorce were a commentary on the first one. When she addressed the Urban divorce publicly for the first time in a Variety interview in March 2026, she said she was moving toward what was good. She said she was grateful for her family and focused on keeping them together and moving forward. She said she would not discuss everything else out of respect for the people involved. She described her daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, as having suddenly become young women while she was paying attention to other things. She handled the second divorce exactly the way she handled the first one, with brevity, grace, and a complete refusal to let anyone else's curiosity override her own sense of what was appropriate to share. And when Harper's Bazaar asked her in a separate interview whether she had become more guarded after being hurt, she said something that has stayed in the coverage of her for years since she first said it. She said she was wary sometimes. She said she had been hurt. but she said she much preferred a warm, open approach to life to a prickly, closed-off one. She said that when Keith Urban first met her, he asked her how her heart was. She said she had told him, "Open." She filed for divorce from the man who asked that question. And the answer she still gives when anyone asks about her heart is the same one she gave him when they met. Is the silence she has maintained for 25 years about the most significant relationship of her early life a form of grace? Or is it the specific price she has paid to keep a thread of connection to two children she is quietly and perpetually grieving the distance from? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.